All right, student Alex here. So I will do like you asked. So I will do a demo of how to do the UVs in Maya. So first up, if you open the scene called Marteau model that was provided in class. So as mentioned before, so you can select anything other than the one that we'll be working with today. So in this example is Ammer model. So this one you can hide by pressing Control H. Um, and then if you go over here to the hammer high, this one you can hide as well. If for some reason the outliner isn't is hidden, so you can click over here, so the outliner will appear over there. So now, a couple things. I'll just make sure that you follow along with me, like we did in class. So first things first. So what we'll do is we'll set up the two shortcuts that I showed you in the class. So under Windows, Setting Preferences, if you go under Hotkey Editor, under here in the application command, you can look for the command which is cut UV. So cut UV edge. So this is the one. So under modeling, so just assign Control B. So you need to press those keys, Control NB, and not right Control NB. Just press those buttons. So once you're done with that, um, we'll do the other one. The other one is called Toggle Isolate Select. So same here, Toggle Isolate. So you'll have it here. Mine is assigned to Alt Q. Uh, so if, for example, you would have already a shortcut that would be assigned, there will be a pop-up saying, hey, this shortcut is assigned to something else. Do you want to change it? So if you do, so you can just press yes, and then it will let you go. So you can press save and close, or if you would like to export, for example, those new shortcuts, you can export the file through here. So for example, it would save it in the hotkeys folder, and same goes if you would like to import. So if, let's say, those shortcuts you send to a different device, so you could do an import over here and go get the file that you, so even if it's on the desktop, for example, you could import it from there and it will put it in the right drive. All right, so that being said, now that you have the two shortcuts, so we'll start. Oh, one last thing. I'm sorry, I told you in class. If for some reason you're using the orthographic camera and you want to unlock it, you need to go under View, Camera Settings, Camera Tools. I'm sorry, Tumble Tool. If you click the little square to the right, so it will add the parameters. So initially, those two are checked. So just make sure that you uncheck both locked and stepped. Press Q to get out of the tool. That's it. So back to the little mouse. Okay, now, so for the unwrapping part. So Alt Q, so isolate. So that's a new shortcut we created. It's the same thing as if you do this button over here. So I can't zoom in to here, but so you know, it's this little button right here. Okay. So for if you get lost at any time, if your model gets away, you can press F to have it focus again onto the model. So if for some reason the model is you duplicated it and or you moved the camera or anything, so press F, it will focus back onto your asset. All right, what I do is I go over here under UV editing. So that way it gives me a split view of my screen with both the 3D viewport and the UV viewport. So, all right, so now since we're starting from scratch, I'll just reset everything by creating a planar. Okay, so now I removed any UV information that was onto this asset. So right now it's showing blue and red faces, red being inverted faces. So right now the projection is from the top. So it means that everything that is not from the top is red, basically, because the camera that's creating a planar projection is projecting from the top. So it sees all these things from the top, but not the rest. So this is why it's red. But don't worry about that, we'll fix this. Okay, so now again, in order for you to be able to manipulate everything, so I'll say this in the beginning, but then the more I do it, the less I'll mention it. So you have to get into either edge or face mode in order to be able to unwrap. So if I go into face mode, for example, so it will let me select faces on my object. Okay, then so if I want to add an additional face to the selection that I have already, so I can click Shift and add over here. So by just selecting one polygon, it just selected this as well. Same here. Okay, so now if I keep pressing Shift and I click on one that's been selected already, it deselects it. So for the sake of always creating a positive selection, sometimes I use Control and Shift so that whenever I click on an already selected surface, it won't deselect it by mistake. So if you press Control, on the other hand, and click, this will deselect the face that you clicked on. All right. So now um, I'll give you an example. So I'll go to the edge mode. So I'll select from here. I'll press Shift, double click up to here. What Shift does is that it creates a selection on the edge loop from the first thing that I selected to the last thing that I selected. So even though everything else would be connected to the same edge loop, so if I double click, so it goes further away. So this is not what we want. So we want from here to here, right? Okay, and I want to cut it. So I want to Control B to break. Break and cut is the same thing, but from different naming conventions. Okay, so now if you click outside of the selection to deselect the edge selection that you had, you see that now it's white, meaning that you have a visual confirmation that the break, the cut, has been applied. So from there, this is a good sign that we're in the right direction. So I'll go on with the selection. So I select all three edges over here. I press break. I'll select, for example, these three also. I'll break again. Same with these two. Control B, break. Now I double click the edge loop to have the selection go to the end. It missed this one over here. If you can see, this one's not selected. So I'll shift and click to add this over there. So Control B to break. All right. So now, so if I want to know where I'm at with the existing selection to unfold, try and fold it. So I can right click and go to face mode, um, or I could go to the UV shell over here. So this will select a shell, but right now what it means, if it's selecting everything, it means that there's no specific part that was broken, so that was cut on four sides. So nothing is detached. So I'll give you an example. So I'll go to edge mode. I'll double click to select the whole edge loop over here. Control B to break. And then if I do the same operation, so I click onto the um, UV island, UV shell, so it selects just this and not the rest. So meaning that this has been broken at the seams, and I'll be able to unfold it. So from there, so having um, this, oh yeah, you can also go into face mode through here, edge mode through here, and vertices over here. So if I go into faces and I double click on a part, it selects the whole part. So same as the UV shell. So if I double click on the rest, since everything is attached all together, it means that it will all select the whole thing. So right now I'll double click on this. It selects the whole surface. Press W to translate. So I move this to the side so I can see what I'm doing. Under the unfold menu, I can press unfold to have it unfold the surface. In order for me to verify if if there is still some stretching on the model, I can click on here on the checkerboard. So if nothing is selected, so if I'm in object mode and I don't have anything selected, there won't be any um, checkerboard showing up. So I need to have a selection in order for the checkerboard to be visible in the viewport. So right now we see that at the end, at the tip, so there's the right, so we see that the squares are at the right format. So this is a good start. All right, so now I'll go into edge mode. I'll double click the edge loop over here. I'll break it again. So since it's a cylinder, in order to unfold it the right way, just like a cardboard cylinder that you would have, so you would need to make a cut at the bottom where you can then unfold the whole cylinder. So if I select, for example, an edge, let's say at the bottom here so that it's less visible, I can do Control B to break. And then going back to the face mode, I double click to select the whole thing and do an unfold. So now this part and this part are unfolded. You can see the squares are the right dimension. There's no stretching. Okay, so then since this is askew, since this part is askew, I'll just go in Arrange and Layout to reorient the shell. So now my shell is facing, it is having a straight orientation. All right, so then if we were to select, so going back to edge mode, so I'll go a little bit quicker from now. So I think I'll use the faces right now. So face, I'll click here, select all these faces. Okay, and since I'm using faces, I can also click planar to make a projection of this so that it merges everything together. It keeps it together, and then I can do, oh, it don't work. So yeah, it's part of the, sometimes it happens. So if you want to fix this, so uh, what are these parts? Oh, okay, so they're not on the same side, so it's okay. So I have the full shape that I wanted, so it did work. All right, so that being said, I push it to the side. Now I'll do the same thing to the other side. So I'll select all the faces over here, one by pressing Shift. I'll include the two at the bottom as well. I'll do a planar, and I'll do an unfold. Okay. So the reason why I do planar is it detaches it from the initial selection. So if I do a Control Z, I go back, and now I have all my selection. So let's say I didn't do a planar and I do a unfold. Since it's attached to the rest of the geometry, it doesn't unfold properly. It doesn't have it's restricted by the tension that it has with other polygons. So for example, if it's tied to this polygon, this one, since it's not selected, will keep its orientation. So it will prevent this one from stretching to its right potential. So this is why I click planar to keep the selection together and sort of merge everything, and unfold to have it beautifully unwrapped. All right, so now that being done, we can do the rest. So I have shortcuts to go from vertices, from edges to faces. So for me, it's really easy to go through that quickly. So I selected faces, so planar, unfold, bam. Okay, then if I look at the rest of the asset over here, I'll select the edge loop that's around here. I'll select the edge loop that's around there. Since this has a star at the edge, so if you look, there's an edge this way, this way, this way, this way, and this way. So this is why I didn't include this part of the edge loop. So now I'll manually add it. So now that everything's selected, I do Control B to break. I go into face mode. I double click to select, unfold. This part is done. So I can still verify with the checkerboard to see if they're stretching. There will always be some minor stretching in some, you know, uh, tight spaces, but to a certain extent, we can deal with a bit of stretching. So if it's problematic, we might just add additional breaks. So for example, I could break it from here to here. So I double clicked on the edge loop, and I press Control V. So I will double click onto here and Control B. Uh, So now if I unfold it, you will get rid of the stretching. So the squares will be a lot more straight. So here there's a little bit of distortion, but it's barely visible. You won't see that whenever you texture. All right. So and then over, I'll do the rest real quick. So edge mode, double click to select the edge, Control B to break. And since this part over here is sort of a cylindrical shape, so I'll just go at the bottom. I'll select the edge loop over here. I'll break. I'll go to face mode, double click, and unfold. Oh, so I missed um, one face over here. So now, for the sake of the exercise, so here I can just select this face, do a planar, so it separates it from the rest. I do unfold, and then I can click this, well, either of the three edges here, and click on stitch, which is under cut and sew. It's right stitched together. So now it has stitched the two parts together. So the initial unwrap plus the little part that was missing. So if you look over here, so the red means that this edge here connects to this edge here. So right now I'll select it. So now it's green, saying that it's the same edge. And then I'll do a sew. So right here. I'll do the same over here. And then since this part has been scrummed in the middle of the rest of the UV shell, I'll go in face mode, double click, and unfold to make sure that it's not stretched. Now I'll move that over to the side. I'm almost done. So this part over here. So since the rest has been already cut around it, if you see, everything else has been cut. So that means that this part, if I just unfold it, it will unfold by itself correctly. All right, so this goes here. What's this part? Okay, so this I'll need to attach to the rest, so I'll create a selection. Oh, this part I'll select with the UV shell. I'll go here. I'll do an unfold, put it to the side, and the rest, basically, I can do a planar so that I don't have to manually sew and stitch all the edges here. So by doing a planar, it merges everything together, and then I do an unfold. So if you saw it real quick, it went from red, which means that the faces were flipped, and whenever I do a selection, so in this case a marquee selection with the rectangle, I do an unfold, it flips the faces right back to their original position. So that's it for that. All right, so now I'll select every piece. I'll make sure that every part of the hammerhead is included in there. So yes, so I'll go into layout. So it will pack all the UVs together. But in order to have a more optimal layout, so I'll make sure that all the parts are aligned in one axis, so either vertically or horizontally to maximize the UV space. So here, and I'll do it again. You see how it made the parts bigger? So that means that the texture resolution now on all these parts is bigger. So the amount of pixels that this cover is bigger than before. So one last thing here. So face mode. Over here, I double click on there. All the lines are jagged and uneven. So for texturing purposes, it will be easier if all those lines are straight. So you can go under straighten UVs, which is right below unfold, and it just makes everything square. Well, straight. Just to make sure that by doing this operation, it didn't overlap on anything. So I'll go into face mode, select the whole thing, and then I'll do a new layout. So it moved it a little bit to respect the distance. If you look right here, they're pretty close to one another. So I can go by pressing Shift and left clicking the layout button, it opens the parameters. I just want to make sure that I have 1 pixel for both the shell padding, which is every UV shell, which is this one, so they have at least 1 pixel distance in between one another. And tile padding is the pixel difference in between the border of the texture and the first UV shell. So you see, it kept it nice and far from the edge of the texture. All right, so that's it. So once you're done with this, you can unhide, so unisolate. So select all the parts. Just go over here on my hammer low. I'll re-isolate to make sure that I'm using the right hammer. And now, since the other 2 parts I did before, I can select all parts. So now I see that it's in orange, meaning that everything is selected at the moment. And now I can do a new layout to lay out all the parts onto the same texture. So that when we texture in Substance Painter, we'll just use one texture for the whole asset. So if you can find ways to make your parts bigger, your UV shells bigger, while still being proportional, I strongly suggest you do, so to avoid any empty spots in the texture. So this is a waste of pixel and a waste of memory in the engine. So that's it. So again, one quick thing I showed in class, if you want to make sure that your UV scale is the same for everything, under transform, you can go to textile density, click one to get the value it has. So it's a digit, and then I can select everything and press set, and now I see that the ratio weren't respected initially. So now I can do a new layout, meaning, let's see here, if I do a visual, if I press the checkerboard, I see that these squares are bigger than these squares. So you want the pixel ratio to be the same across every piece of UV, so that whenever you texture, it's not this part has a big texture and the other one has a really small part, a really small texture. So now that I've selected everything, I can do a new layout. Sorry, after putting them to the same size. And now my layout works. And if you see, all the squares are at the same dimension from one asset to the other. UV shell, sorry, to the other. All right, so now I feel there's too much room over here. So I'll just select a couple of them and rotate them 90 degrees to see if the layout is better. And then if I go over here and get, so I have a better pixel textile density. So it did make a difference. All right, so that's it for that. Another thing I covered in class is if you go under transform and put this number over here to 1, so you can, when you select with face and double click a UV shell, you can press the arrow keys, so the arrows, so right to move it to the right spot, up to move it up, and so on and so forth. So what it does basically is if you are working on this part and you want to do a selection, and it's over here, and you want to select and be really precise, it will be hard because there's a lot of things that are close to one another. So by moving it to the side, 1 unit, so it makes it really easy for you to be able to troubleshoot and work your way around with this. So that's it. I hope it helps. Again, I know that the navigation might not have been really something that you've been a lot that you've been familiar with a lot so far. So hoping that that this settles it. And yeah, so can't wait to see you guys next week. Bye.